When we talk about video games, there are obvious pillars in the history of gaming we look back on and how they shape the landscape of gaming in the future. One of those games is Halo Combat Evolved. In this retrospective, I want to talk about why Halo was and still is such an influential game to this day. With 13 games, 20-something odd books, a TV show shit-panned on Paramount Plus, and 4 kind of okay movies, there's a reason why this universe has been so explored in a ton of different mediums. If you like this type of video, please consider subscribing to the channel. It definitely fucking means a lot to me. Now, let's get on to how Halo changed shooters forever and why it's still so dope to this day. When looking at Halo from a genre level view, it's impossible to dismiss how the state of first-person shooters changed after its release. Keep in mind, in 2001, the first-person shooter genre on console was in its infancy state, with the most prominent shooter at the time being 007 GoldenEye for the Nintendo 64. The concept of utilizing both sticks to both move and turn at the same time was pretty foreign, with most of the time the turning being on top of the face buttons. But looking at shooters now, it's obvious that the Halo control scheme of movement became the standard for all console shooters from that point on. Not to mention they had custom button mapping for multiplayer and single player, allowing for a lot more accessibility options. If you don't like where jump button is, just change to a different control scheme. It's pretty fucking cool, to be honest with you. Halo also proved that not only can you have a compelling control scheme in how you just basic interact with the game, but have the game design, map design, and narrative to boot. The concept of wide open levels was just not a thing at that period in time. Look back at GoldenEye, Wolfenstein, or Doom. All of these game level designs were quarter after quarter, with the occasional big open room for a big open encounter or a boss fight. Halo blew map and level creation out of the water by its second level. Upon landing on Halo, you're met with a vast area to move and explore, where vehicles are required to make it anywhere in a timely manner. The sense of scale is immense and really feels like you're exploring a familiar yet foreign landscape. Vehicles were not really prominent at this time in first-person shooters. From the iconic 3-seater Warthog with a massive chain gun on the back, to the Scorpion tank that just blows the enemy away, which unfortunately you only see in one level, to the Ghosts and the Banshees and the Wraiths that seemingly zip around the map, shooting their plasma and just being a really kind of foreign feeling vehicle. The vehicles in this game are truly diverse and still a mainstay to this day. They're so fun to drive, the physics are wonky, and just led to such a good time in both the single and the multiplayer aspects of Halo. The Warthog is easily the most iconic vehicle in almost all of gaming at this point, with the giant chain gun on the back. It just feels so good to fucking drive in this game, and I'm so glad that they kept the Warthog in for, virtually at this point every Halo game, with Halo leading the charge to make these a mainstay in the shooter space. The health systems were also vastly changed in how shooters operated up until this point. Let's take a look at the health bar up close real quick. You have two parts in this small space, one being your health and one being your shield. When taking damage, you begin to lose your shield. When the shield pops, you then begin to take flesh damage. Now, in prior shooters, it would be health and armor, requiring the player to find pickups for both to replenish the pool. However, the shield in Halo recharges after just staying out of combat and not getting hit for a period of time. This was huge, as it allowed players to just stick in the fight for a longer period of time without losing any of those precious resources, as your shield would just recharge on its own. This was great for console players as well, because the movement and just using a gamepad anyway is not nearly as precise or as quick as it is on a mouse and keyboard. This was also really one of the first shooters to incorporate the health regeneration in a shield mechanic, one that we would see in most modern day shooters from Call of Duty to Battlefield to, hell, the rest of the Halo franchise. These don't incorporate the need of a health pack like Halo Combat Evolved does still, but Halo straddles the line between old school mechanics and modern day health regeneration. Hell, Call of Duty, you don't even see a health pack, you just crouch down and all of your health comes back. It's amazing to look back on Halo and just see how influential it was in the first-person shooter space, and we have only scratched the basics of what made Halo so influential to games in the first-person shooter genre specifically.
Damn right I am. Now move it out! Double time!
From a technical standpoint as well, Bungie shifted the entire shooter landscape, forcing the industry to just do better on console, thinking larger and how more intuitively about how shooters can be made and played. Bringing along all this was the introduction of an amazing multiplayer arena suite, allowing for consoles to land together, bringing 16-man multiplayer into Halo. The amount of parties I was in as a kid with my dad and his friends, and even my friends, all playing Halo across 4 separate consoles was a really magical experience at the time. It doesn't seem like so now with the advent of online gaming, but back in the old boomer days, it was mind-blowing to say the least that this was able to even be done on a console system. This was mostly relegated to PC. Let's all think back to that. We can't forget about the 2-player split-screen co-op as well. The ability to play with a friend, or in my case, my dad, back in 2001 was absolutely mind-blowing, an experience that brought people together to explore this expansive world that was Halo. While the warping of the slow player could be daunting at times and I left my dad in the dust a lot, it allowed for players of all skill levels truly to play together. To my knowledge, this was really only the first shooter that had the full campaign fully playable in co-op, and really was a mainstay in the rest of Bungie's Halo run. Giving players a large variety of ways to play and interact with Halo kept the game fresh for literally decades at this point, seeing as you could still play it on the Master Chief Collection, and is in my opinion one of the main reasons why this game was such a juggernaut back in the day, and still is in 2022.
Don't keep it loaded, son. You'll have to find ammo as you go.
I feel like I would be doing all Halo fans a disservice if we didn't talk about the soundtrack and sound design of Halo Combat Evolved, as it is, beyond a shadow of a doubt, one of the best aspects of Halo Combat Evolved and Halo as an entire franchise, at least in the Bungie years, of course. With each weapon sounding unique and iconic to the voice of the Covenant, every aspect of Halo's sound design is crisp, clean, and recognizable. I don't think there's a more iconic sound than the Elite and his... or the grunt shit-talking until you kill the commanding Elite and then they scream. The sounds and voices of Halo are iconic and brilliant. The soundtrack for Halo, chef's fucking kiss all around. There is a reason why Marty O'Donnell and Halo as a series is heralded for having one of the best music soundtracks in the business. It sets the entire tone, complete experience, from the swelling drums to the beach attack on the silent cartographer, the Gregorian monk chants in the main theme, to the unsettling use of synthesizers and distortion in 343 Guilty Spark in the library. The introduction of the Flood, giving it the vibe of something foreign, unknown, and unsettling. It all evokes and encapsulates the tone and feeling of the world and narrative of Halo from start to finish. From the action to the building of tension to the feeling of mystery and otherworldliness, all of it is married in a soundtrack to give sound to what you're experiencing and the tone of the levels and the narrative as well. I don't know what more could be said about this masterpiece of music creation. It is one of the few soundtracks I truly listen to outside of the game, and it still conveys the same emotions to me as it does in the game. I adore this soundtrack, and in my opinion, forced the industry to really step up the game when it comes to music and soundtracks as well. Marty O'Donnell really was the first game composer to break out into the open in the mainstream. I mean, how many other game composers do you know by first name? I can think of like 3, and one of them is Marty, and the other is Mick Gordon, who did the soundtrack for Doom. What the soundtrack does for Halo is set the tone of what is occurring in both the gameplay and story in such a masterful way. It's even hard to compare this work to many other titles, especially coming out in 2001. I don't know what else to say about this soundtrack other than it's a sheer masterpiece from start to finish. When examining any first-person shooter, we also have to talk about guns. I mean, it's the main tool of a shooter, is it not? To adapt Halo as a first-person shooter into the console market, some concessions had to be made in order to create a solid feeling when swapping your weapons. Hence why Bungie limited the amount of weapons that you can carry to 2. This is another massive shift as well. Think back to GoldenEye or Wolfenstein or Doom. I keep bringing these games up because these were the pinnacles at the time, but how hard was it to weapon swap between a ton of weapons? A, it's completely unrealistic in the main because who can carry 30 weapons on their fucking back? But B, it becomes unwieldy to hit the same button 8 times and to get back to a gun that you were using that would be a better tool for the job. Having 2 weapons not only makes the weapon swapping feel easier and more intuitive, but allows for an interesting loop of weapon scavenging on the fly. Find a weapon that's a better tool for the job at hand, like the shotgun, just go ahead and grab it. Run out of ammo for that said shotgun? Well, there's probably a Covenant weapon you can grab and use in a pin. In Halo, there are 2 different types of weapons, human and Covenant. Human weapons consist of, what we know, pistols, shotguns, rocket launchers, assault rifles, and snipers. Each one of these weapons serve a vital role in the Halo sandbox, and work is just as pretty much how you would expect them to do. Shotguns for up close, snipers for long range, and pistols for basically everything, because it's pretty well known how absolutely fucking broken it is and how much damage it actually puts out. The Covenant weapons like the Needlers, plasma pistols, and plasma rifles all operate off of batteries requiring cooldowns if overheated and no reloading, which was really odd at the time for me. While interesting, I never found myself really using these too much in Halo Combat Evolved, as the only true different utility that these bring to the table is the ability to take shields off quicker, or in the case of a Needler, act as like a micro grenade if you land like 10 needles into them. While the weapon pool is a little small compared to modern day standards, all of them pretty much feel absolutely great to use, and with some tuning would make the Covenant weapons even more viable. Would almost be a perfect set of tools for dispatching all the hostiles in Halo. The enemies in Halo are iconic. The Covenant is a band of alien races working together for the same cause: the eradication of the human race and the taking control of the Halo rings and lighting their great journey. While the second goal is kind of unknown to the player at the start, the variety of enemies serve as an amazing lore purpose as well as just for a gameplay purpose as well. Each enemy serves a role in the battlefield. The Grunts serve as cannon fodder and are easy on their own to dispatch, but in large packs are brutals and dangerous. The Jackals, carrying their shields and their plasma pistols, really act as like that front line, kind of like a Spartan shield wall, blocking most of your shots and really kind of being a nuisance unless you hit them from behind or shoot them in their little hole in the shield. The elites basically serve as the commanders, and they're distinguished in different colors as well, which are easily recognizable as blue, red, gold, and black, all with different ranging of difficulties and how much actual damage they can take. Taking out one of these elites causes the Grunts to go wild because they've just lost their leader and they don't know what to do. It truly is a testament to the AI that the other enemies on the field, if you kill one of their leaders, go scattering in 1,000 different directions out of just fear that you've just taken out their leader. And we can't forget the Hunters as well, but while they're big and they hit like a fucking truck with the pistol and the sniper, if you just shoot them in the back once, they're pretty fucking easy to take down. So all you have to do is really just sidestep and shoot them in their gooey orange bits in the back, kind of leaving them to be, I don't know, not that great, at least in this game. But utilizing their tactics on the battlefield, the Covenant are truly a force to be reckoned with, and really are also just a pure mainstay in the Halo franchise as well. They create so much character into, what you're killing over and over again that it's hard to ever picture the Covenant ever actually leaving and stop being cool. But after all that, I think it's time that we finally tackle the narrative in Halo, which, as we stated before, really sets Halo apart as a shooter.
Oh, he's taller than I thought!
In my mind, the story of Halo is split up into 3 parts, much like a song: the build-up, the apex, and the crescendo. You play as the Master Chief, awoke after a jump from the human planet of Reach that was being destroyed by the alien race known as the Covenant. Your ship, the Pillar of Autumn, escaped only to be faced with the mysterious ring world which the Covenant know as Halo. As the Covenant are boarding your ship, you make your way to Captain Keyes, who wants you to take the ship's AI, Cortana, off and escape to the ring world down below. This begins as what I refer to as the build-up. Upon landing on Halo, the mysteries of the ring world are explored, uncovered, and brought to light. From rescuing Marines from the Pillar of Autumn, to running a covert operation to save Captain Keyes, to finding the map room and heading to the control room subsequently. As you explore the alien architecture and abandoned operating structures of the ring, many questions begin to crop up. Why were the Covenant here in the first place? Where were the original Halo inhabitants? What is the ring's purpose and why build it in the first place? Upon reaching the control room and inserting Cortana into the mainframe is when the tone of Halo begins to take a drastic shift. Keep in mind, all this time, Cortana has been pretty cool, calm, and collected, assisting the Chief with intel on the mission, about the ring, and the Covenant movements, as well as what's going on in the human side of the fight. Upon analyzing the data, she becomes frantic, telling the Chief to just hurry up and go, won't explain anything, and save the Captain, who is looking for a weapons cache on another part of the ring. The Chief speeds off to the swamps where it's obvious something isn't right. The tone starts to take a shift more towards a horror game, seeing dead bodies, seeing shadows in the distance of fucking random shapes, finding down drop ships, and finding the Covenant, most frightening of all, not engaging the Chief like the rest of the game, but running in the opposite direction. In the building, you find dead bodies of grunts and elites, ripped to shreds, and are met with a Marine who fires upon you on sight. Upon leaving him yelling downstairs as you trudge on through the facility, he begins to yell about how he's not going to be turned into one of those things and muttering something about something attacking the rest of his unit. The Chief stumbles on a locked door with sounds of scurrying occurring behind him, keeping the Chief on edge. Opening the door, he's met with a dead body and a helmet with camera footage on it. This scene is probably one of my favorite cutscenes in the entire game, having that found footage film vibe much like Paranormal Activity or Cloverfield. At the end of the video, you see a new organism attacking the captain and the rest of the Marine squad, latching onto their faces, and given by the number of gunshots, either not dying or there is a lot of these fucking things. This is the introduction to the Flood, an organic life form who attaches itself to the body, alive or dead, transforming them into one of their own, much like a parasite. You are then attacked by these things, swarming you in huge numbers, getting up after death and swarming again. The Flood is unsettling, and with its overly high aggression throwing themselves upon you from all directions, it truly is just, you're always on your toes during any of these Flood levels. You work your way topside, beating back wave after wave of the Flood, now learning how to shoot guns as you make it to the next floor, to be taken to by a small glowing ball calling himself 343 Guilty Spark, or the Monitor. His voice is mechanical and unsettling, but somehow friendly at the same time. He tells you of a key that will activate Halo's defense systems and wipe out the Flood, being whisked away pretty much against your will to one of the most contentious levels of the game, the library. You make your way to said key after 4 floors of constant onslaught of these creatures. People hate this level for its boring design, and it's pretty fucking difficult, to say the least. I'm in agreement with the boring level design aspect and look compared to the rest of the game, but given the tone set by the Flood, it seems fitting that you'd be working your way through this labyrinthian series of dark hallways and series of test tubes and small chambers where the Flood seems to be held all this time. Getting the key, the Monitor takes you back to a familiar location, the control room. You insert the index, to which Cortana jumps out and calls you stupid and tells you the true secret of Halo, that it was designed to kill all sentient life in a large radius, humans, Covenant, whatever, essentially starving the Flood to death and preventing it from spreading. Being betrayed by the Monitor, you turn on him as well, and now adding his robot army, the Sentinels, into the mix. In the span of just 2 levels, we are introduced not only to 1, but 2 more factions to deal with. We now enter the crescendo part of the narrative, where the Chief and Cortana work to destroy the ring and escape. This is the point where we need to quickly bring up some of the asset reuse of Halo. From here on out, the levels we go through are the same ones we've been through already, from the control room, the Covenant ship, Truth and Reconciliation, and ending with the Pillar of Autumn. I used to think this was kind of lazy as well, and in a way, I mean, it is. Reusing entire levels really seems like a cop-out, but let's take a look at it in a different light. Yes, the levels are the same, but backwards. But in doing so, you, the player, can now see and visually realize the impact of your actions in releasing the Flood, having affected the areas that you were just in prior. From the snow-capped canyons around the control room, now with scenes of an all-out brawl with all the 3 different factions fighting each other as well as yourself, the damage and effect the Flood had on the Covenant ship, the Truth and Reconciliation, and how it's basically ripped the ship apart to shreds in this war between the Flood and the Covenant, as well as the Pillar of Autumn and how it sustained itself in the crash, or lack thereof. In taking a step back and looking at it through this lens of the consequences of your actions, not only did I enjoy these levels a little bit more this time around, but it really makes you pay attention to the small details of the changes rather than how much it looks the same as it did before. After you destroy the power couplings, Cortana has the idea of blowing up the Pillar of Autumn to rip the ring apart. To do so, you're going to need the Captain's neural implants. Making your way back to the ship you saved him on, the Truth and Reconciliation, you find the Covenant also having a major issue not being able to leave, and their ship is pretty much fucked up. In the disarray, you find the Captain turning into a giant flood sack on the bridge of the ship. The Chief literally punches his face in, grabs the implants, and heads for the Pillar of Autumn. Fighting your way through where you all began, now completely in ruin, the completely destroyed ship in which you started your journey on. The Monitor returns and deactivates the self-destruct sequence, leading the Chief and Cortana to crack a hole in the engine, causing it to explode in a far more crude manner. You race to the last fighter in a harrowing Warthog chase scene where you're just going through massive corridors trying to get to some semblance of safety while running over all forms of Covenant, Flood, and Sentinels in your way. As you make it halfway through, you watch the last human on the ring be shot down by the Covenant in the process, Echo 419. I have to say, with the one helping you go from place to place throughout the entire game, it is pretty fucking tragic to watch her just slowly get destroyed by 2 insignificant Covenant Banshees, which we've already taken out tons of in the game already. As she drifts off in the distance, surely to be dead, You make it to the final longsword and make your escape, blowing up the ring in the process. As you watch the debris rip through its own structure and float alone in a ship that doesn't seem like it's going to make it anywhere close to home, the last phrase uttered by the chief, "No, we're just getting started," brings this game to a close. And looking back and having replayed this again for the video, it is truly a melancholy ending. You're the last one alive in all of this. And looking back at where you started, would it have been better just to die in the fight or to float off in space by yourself, hoping to be rescued? That's for you to decide. While half of the game in the beginning is really nothing to write home about, the amount of world building set up in Halo, the War of the Covenant, and the mysteries surrounding the ring are what elevate Halo to a whole new level. It gets you invested in the space you're in and feeds you enough breadcrumbs to keep you wondering what's going on and what's going to happen next. It's not until you reach the control room where everything ramps up to 11 and the heel turn of the introduction of the Flood is absolutely legendary. This reveal is unparalleled and ramps up the tension to a completely new level. Everything about this game is expertly executed. Having this major secret of the ring revealed to be hiding a true horror within. I love Halo, and it's a true testament to its world building and lore set up in this game that it spawned a massive franchise with an expanded universe to even rival that of Star Wars being made for it. While the franchise seems to be really off the rails right now with 343 at the helm, the seeds Bungie planted in this game is why the studio is as highly regarded as it is today. Halo is a mastercraft at building a compelling world and changing the landscape of how shooter stories could and should be told. I can't praise it enough, but with all of this happening in one game made in 2001, I think we can now finally see why Halo is as cemented as it is in the video game lexicon as it is to this day. And with that, we bring this video to a close. I know there's some more stuff that I miss, and I also don't want to make a 4-hour YouTube video on Halo. But I want to hear in the comments down below, what was your favorite part of Halo Combat Evolved and how or if it had an impact on you? I'd love to hear about it. I love reading all of your comments. I respond to almost all of them. So let me know in the comments down below. If you made it to the end of this video, please consider subscribing. I like doing these long form video essays about shit that I love or stuff that I don't like. It also turns out that only 5% of you who actually watch these videos are subbed to the channel, and it would mean a ton to me if you got any enjoyment out of this to go ahead and hit that button. It helps me out a lot. And naturally, if you like this video, consider hitting that like button as well. It's free and it's a great way to help me and any content creators you like, and it helps get more eyeballs on this video. I also want to give a huge shout out to my friend Flip, or Mark, for helping me get this edited as well. When this comes out, I'm sitting on a cruise boat drinking copious amounts of whiskey and planning the next few videos, so shout out to him for really helping me kind of ramp this up and make sure this gets out on time. I'll leave a link to his stuff down below. Once again, thank you all for watching, and as always, my name is Brendan, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.